Hi everybody, it's time for another archetype video. This time I'm going to combine two archetypes because it's the only way I can describe what I'm about to describe to you. And it started out this way. I had a conversation with someone a few days ago. And so you're all familiar with the the pessimist, right? And the combination I want to put together today is like the vampire pessimist. And sometimes we need two archetypes to describe a pattern in someone because one just can't hold it. Sometimes a person is a warrior mother, and sometimes a person really is a adult child. I mean, you almost need the duality to explain a person's behavior or to understand it or see it more clearly. So I'm going to start with the pessimistic part of this person, which is what inspired this. I'm having a conversation, and a characteristic of a pessimist is that they complain. They're complainers. And that's part of their the pessimist's worldview is that nothing makes any difference. Nothing will ever change anything. Everything's always going to be the same old, same old. What difference can I make? And this is the narrative pessimists always, often I should say, how they speak to themselves. And it's extraordinarily difficult to kind of inspire a pessimist. I mean, you may as well, I may as well try and swim the English Channel. I mean, it's like not going to happen. But we try and we try and we try. And so in this conversation, which was one of several I've had, and I said, well, have you thought about this? Nah, yeah. Well, have you thought about this? Yeah, I thought about what it's not going to do any good. Well, what about calling this person? Never answers the phone. I mean, the list went on and on. And that's when I realized that I was feeling as if I was hemorrhaging. Like I was like this. And I thought, oh my God, I need to get a shot of caffeine fast. I mean, I am just like under a spell here. But the other person was quite energized, was thinking, that wouldn't work. No, I don't think that'll work. No, I don't think it is. But one of the characteristics of a pessimist is that for as miserable as they are, sleeping in a rotting bed of hay, the idea that we'll go across the street and maybe see if you can get a mattress. Well, I mean, what difference would that make? It probably would be lumpy. And it's like, right? And what you find yourself doing is saying, you got to just believe in this. I mean, you've got what it takes. You've got talent, you've got this, you've got that, you've got, people love you, da da da. And what happens is they kind of get all the positive feedback or all the positive nourishment from that little conversation with you that they need. They don't have to change anything in their life because they kind of get that kind of pessimist complainer tactic of saying, well, I tried that and it just didn't work. And it's like people who try something once. And I said to one person one time, you're going to need to go to a chiropractor. You're going to need to um, change your nutrition. You're going to need to get a little more exercise. And mind you, the nature of healing, as I'm sure so many of you understand, is that it's a long-term commitment. It's not one and done. You don't go to a chiropractor once and then come back and say, well, that didn't work. I mean, you suffer from back pain for years, and you go to someone and you think one little adjustment's going to put you back together again. You're mistaken. You have to make this commitment to realign your whole body, which means you have to realign your thinking and realign your interior. It is a whole complement of realignments that go with it. And It is a commitment where you realize I am going to go into realignment here. And it will require several appointments with a chiropractor. It will require my realigning my thinking and realigning my inner myths and realigning. I'm going to realign myself. It's not just about going once to a person who cracks your lower body and then you go back home. I mean, and then you say the next day, well, it was fine when I walked out of the office, and then, which is exactly part of this conversation. And then, the next morning, wow, there I was again. Ergo, the mattress part of this. And so I had this conversation several times, made several suggestions. This wasn't the first go at it, but this particular time, I became so aware that I was feeling psychically drained, as if I was hemorrhaging. I mean, as if I really was hemorrhaging. And in that moment, I kind of detached, completely detached from this person, as if I was just talking to someone I had no connection to. And that kind of detachment allows you to see a situation with more clarity, not judgment, but clarity. Like, what's really going on here? What is the mechanism? What's the archetypal dynamic that I am now involved in that I feel like I'm just being sucked into, like this psychic black hole where I'm kind of thing. And as is often the case with in relationships, when you know somebody, you put your guard down. You're not the same person as if you were on stage teaching and you have your guard up. You have your professional eyeballs in, so to speak. But I quickly put my guard up, and it allowed me to get a clearer sense of what the archetypal dynamic was that I was now involved in. And I realized that I was engaged in a conversation with a pessimist archetypal pattern, and that there was no way in, because there was just no way in. It has to almost run its course. It has to exhaust the person. And in the process, it exhausts the people around, because part of what a pessimist does is that here comes the vampire, is that the person becomes very good at saying they're trying, but not really. Or they try the minimum, or they try to the extent where, do you ever work with someone in the kitchen? I don't know how to do this. And if you say, well, here, I'll do it, I'll show you, they back off, and that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted you to do it for them. And I learned long ago with the kids that what I say is I'll back off and say, well, pick up the spoon and stir the butter until it's soft. Well, I don't know how. Learn. I'm not doing it for you. I'll stand here and watch you, but I will not do it for you. It's not going to happen. And that, but it's not, but the butter's hard and it's not going to work. And well, let's wait for it then. I never gave in with the kids with that whiny kind of thing. And the last thing you ever want to do is say, well, then I'll do it for you, because how will they learn? And with that pessimistic trait, where sometimes in the conversation will come up, well, I called that person and they didn't return. I mean, do you know them? And that's when it was in that moment that I thought, oh my God, you want me to do this for you. And I'm going to hit a pause button here, because this is a big deal. From an energetic level, I hope I can explain this. The vampire and the pessimist, I'm going to put them together now. What I recognized as soon as the question was posed to me, can you do this for me, was that, the vampire archetype is a long and has a long history, a myth history, stories, legends. It's a character from the dark side of our mythologies. And one of the characteristics of the vampire, of course, is that it bites, it needs to feed off of human blood or blood, but mostly human blood, and that it accesses that blood through the neck. Well, that's, our power center. This is choice. This is our fifth chakra. This is our vulnerable zone. But as a human being, your greatest power is choice. When someone says, no, my greatest power is love, no, it is not. No, because before you get to love, you have to choose love. Your greatest power is understanding that love is a choice and you're conscious of it, and to not love is also a choice. To withhold love is also a choice. It is a choice. And so this is your power center. This is the reason why I think about how often when someone speaks for you, you're like, right? Or they finish your sentence and you go, right? Or they do things that are kind of like mild irritant violations of fifth chakra protocol. That's what I would call it, fifth chakra protocol. When someone finishes your sentence, or which, by the way, I sometimes do now that I think of it, but that's a conversation for another day. But my point is that this is a very precious power zone. And you know that when someone puts words in your mouth that you didn't say and says you said them, right? Because this is power, and words are power, and this is your power zone. So this is really important because the vampiric energy is all about coming into your sphere and taking your words, taking your thought part, weakening you, taking your thought process, taking your belief systems, weakening you so that you are unable to function fully as an energetic being. Now put these two together. When you're with someone who's a vampire pessimist, and I think that's the only way to put this, when a pessimist is really, really deeply entrenched in that, they must thrive off of other people's energy. They require it. Why is that? And this is what's important to understand. It's because we are creative creatures. We must give birth. We must give birth to ideas, healthy conversations, give birth to ways of helping people, give birth to ways of being of service, give birth to children, give birth to ways of celebrating a beautiful day. Give birth. Just keep it going. Where what you create, and here's the operative thing I want you to get, where what you create comes back to you in a rich harvest. So that if you're creating good ideas in yourself, positive ideas in yourself, they produce a harvest in yourself. They produce the next level of inspiration. If you decide to create a wonderful dinner. My creative time is often in the kitchen, and which explains why I've gained weight. But you create, and you have friends over and you share that, and I'm not talking about like creating art masterpieces. I'm talking about creative ways to see things, creative ways to do things, just keep that going because it brings things back. The other day I had all these vegetables in the refrigerator, and I just can't stand to waste food. It's just so I thought, well, and I took all these vegetables and I had all this stuff. I had mushrooms and I had leeks, and you can't have a refrigerator without leeks. And I had shallots, and I had, what else did I have? Parsley, and you name it. So I made a marinara sauce, and then I had some chicken, and I prepared that, and I threw it together, and I thought I'd have chicken, like a chicken cacciatore. I'm telling you, it was the worst thing I ever made. I'm a fabulous cook. So I sat there mystified. How did this happen? In fact, I called friends and I said, how did it happen? How did it happen? I do not make mistakes in my kitchen, but I did. But even that was creative. I, even that was creative. I thought, well, at least I tried, and it won't happen again. Except I don't remember what I did, but it was the the joy of trying to create something new is what I'm talking to you about. It brings back, here's the point, it brings back energy. It pays energetic dividends. It feeds your soul. It feeds your nature. It feeds your mind. It feeds, well, what else can I do? It just, creative energy invested in creative anything, creative conversations, kind conversations, loving conversations, um, anything. It brings back a dividend. It pays a dividend. It pays a dividend. But when you don't invest your life force in something that pays you well, pays an energetic dividend that doesn't pay you well, when you invest your energy in complaining, when you invest your energy in pessimistic thoughts, when you invest your energy in acts of self-sabotage, you have got to go and get that energy somewhere else, because nothing's coming back to you. Nothing is coming back to you. And think about that. All these ideas, like with a pessimist, no matter what, well, have you tried this? Well, what about this? Even before they look at it and think, well, maybe, I don't know, I'll give it a shot. I mean, who knows what's behind the gold door, right? It's like, nah, they find a reason. So the way the universe works is that it is forever supplying us with ideas and um, inspirations and thoughts and intuitive hits that are meant to enhance us, to keep us healthy, to keep us going, to just keep us on the life path. To, to and when we do not engage with these opportunities, we become depleted. And how we feel that energetic depletion is you become very sleepy, eventually depressed, eventually very lethargic. And then you can't think creatively at all. So eventually, the idea of someone saying, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you go here? Why don't you? I just, you know what? I don't have the energy. It's true. They don't. Here comes the vampire. And the way the vampiric, they have to get that energy somehow, somewhere, from someone. So the relationship becomes very vampiric, where you find yourself constantly reinforcing them, saying, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. And let me say something. Everybody cycles through challenging periods of time. So let me not come across as though I'm saying, everybody should be a high-end optimist. I have comments about optimism too. But I am saying that there's a difference between going through a dark time and being a pessimist, where everything's a dark time and nothing's worth trying, which is a way of allowing where a person allows themselves to start living off the energetic fat of someone else's land, of someone else's energy field, where they call up and they'll say, can you just listen to me for a while, and da 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 da, and you'll say, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. Instead of getting that message, you'll be fine, now follow this, instead of getting that message of you'll be fine from your interior, where it should come from, I'll be fine, I'll get through this. You have to get it from someone else. Well, she says I'll be fine, and therefore I'll be fine. And you can live off that for maybe 20 minutes or maybe 2 days. But eventually you need to hear it again. You need to hear it again. Whereas when you get a deep piece of guidance and intuitive truth that comes from you that says you're going to be fine, you kind of snap and you realize, when you get a jolt message that is grace, a jolt of grace, because you have been trying, and it's just Maybe it wasn't the right moment. Maybe it wasn't the right person. Maybe something, rejection is protection. Remember, this is how heaven works. It wasn't the right moment, the right time, whatever. Heaven comes in and says, no, 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 stay on the course. You'll be fine. And you get that. So even in your moment of pessimism, your moment of heaviness, you are recharged because you think, oh, all right, I'll give it another shot. I'll give it another shot. That's the difference between deciding I'm never going to give it a shot because what difference does it make? Which means you then have to rely on the energetic good graces of other people. Well, yeah, I'll help you out. I'll do that for you. Here, let me pick you up and drive you there. Da 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 da. I'll take care of this. And the pessimist vampire. And in this particular time, when I walked away from this person, I came home and I sat down and I thought, oh my God, I was actually kind of lightheaded, feeling like I am so tired. I'm so tired. But it wasn't an ordinary tired. It wasn't like the ordinary tired I get after a day's work and walking my dog and doing my obligations. And it was like a psychic tired. It was the kind of tired I used to get when I was doing workshops and before I realized that I cannot really let myself be hugged by people. It's not that I'm not huggable. It's just that what I think, I can't prove this, but my sense, my sensory experience is that because I'm known for doing medical intuitive readings, because oftentimes in my workshops I do readings, little tiny little readings, little, because I work in that multi-energetic, multi-sensory orbit. I think a lot of people come with a lot of questions that it's not that I don't want to answer them. It's not possible to answer the questions of 200, 300, 400 people. It's just not possible. So they want to hug me, but in the hugging, the agenda transfers. Something transfers. It's something transfers. And I realized that years ago because I'm like a plane that can fly at full force for 500 miles an hour until there's no fuel, because that's exactly what a plane can do. As soon as there's no fuel, down it goes. I'm exactly like that. And so at these workshops, I found myself being very social, very gracious, and that fast, all of a sudden, I was like, get me away from these. If one more person touches me, and it actually hurt. It didn't hurt as if you smacked me. It hurt like an electric shock, like that. It hurt that way. It hurt that way. And then I found myself sleepy, not just sleepy, like sodium pentothal sleeping. And I'd get to my room. One time I actually fell asleep at a dinner at the table while I was eating after a workshop. I was so drained from this. And I would go to my room and I would lay down and I would fall into a quality of sleep that was like a drug state. I mean, just deep, deep sleep where I couldn't even move my body. I would get on the bed and that was it. I couldn't bear to hear another sound. I didn't want another conversation. I didn't want anyone near me. And after a couple of hours, I got up, I would shower and get ready for dinner. And I would feel recharged, not fully, but better. Still very drained. Finally, I realized, you know what? It's not my teaching that drains me. It's the energetic world of which I'm just learning. I'm just learning like you are. But that much I figured out. And similarly, with the vampire pessimist, it was the same thing. And I'm telling you that it will do the same thing to you. If you're with someone with that vampiric, pessimistic archetypal pattern where they complain, but they do nothing about it. Nothing ever changes. Nothing ever changes. That's one of the signatures. Nothing really ever changes. They have a lot of excuses. Well, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for this to happen. I'm waiting. No, what you're waiting for is for everyone else to do your work for you, to carry you along. You will never change. And so the only thing you can do is what I did, which was, you know what, I've given you a couple of suggestions. And as soon as you can report to me what happens after you've invested your time, but I will not have this conversation again. I will never, ever have this conversation again. I will never encourage you to do something I've already suggested you do, because you're not listening. And so it doesn't do us any good. I'm not helping you, and you are not responding. So somehow there's a disconnect. And so I shut it down. I shut it down. So the vampire pessimist, that is a very real force. And I have to tell you that I suspect a lot of you have experiences with this particular duet, archetypal duet. And it's difficult, and it's especially difficult if you're living with these people with this kind of archetype. Or dare I even ask, can you recognize this in yourself? If you are a pessimist, if you're somebody who says, well, I don't even try. I try, and you're constantly cutting opportunities off. I have to tell you, take a look at that, because that your only way to energize yourself is to complain and to live off the positive enforcements from other people. And eventually that will be cut off, because eventually they will feel drained, because it's like a bad investment. I'm investing my life force in you, and it's going nowhere. It's going nowhere. And it's not an easy pattern to take on. But the thing about, and this is what our archetypal patterns are, exactly what we're meant to take on. It's exactly what we're meant to challenge and get through in our life. So when you're pessimistic, you think, well, I don't know, I'm actually going to give that a try. I'm actually going to stick it out, and it's going to be difficult, because you will end up facing every single part of the saboteur that loves the pessimist. The saboteur in you loves they are buddies, they love each other. So the saboteurial voice in you that says, I told you this wouldn't work. That's where you have to say, well, I'm going to try again. I'm just going to stick with it. How do I know? I'm just going to stick with it. You have to really, really work to tune out those voices that are like a chorus on the inside. But if you are with somebody who is a pessimist vampire, it's up to you to plug the leak in your fifth chakra and to say, I've given you all the counsel I can. I have nothing else to say. Maybe it won't work for you. I don't know. But there it is. How's that for one? Obviously, I had an experience. So anyway, I hope this helps you out, because I'm telling you, it helped me a great deal to actually recognize the pattern, which made the person still someone I love. It didn't change that, but I saw the depth of the struggle. And then I knew what my part of it had to be. And maybe, let me end with that. That's an important part, because as soon as I recognized you have a strong vampire pessimist, I could not feed that pattern. I couldn't feed it. And even though the person might have in the moment felt rejected or whatever, I wasn't going to feed in to that individual's vampire pessimist. And it wasn't personal. I got it. It was not personal. I was simply not going to engage at that psychic level. I'm doing a workshop next week on archetypes and these patterns. There's so much to teach, and I probably could teach it all year long. But if you are interested, check it out, because I call them our silent psychic partners, which is exactly what they are. So check it out, and hopefully I'll see you next week at my class. If not, there'll always be more archetype videos at archetype.com, which is now our platform for this. So thank you, everybody.